Let's see. Good evening to everyone. Make sure I have this on record here. Good evening to everyone. We have about 45 seconds before we officially call start time. While we're waiting, if you would, place your name and campus in the chat. Place your name and campus in the chat. And also, if you have already done so, check your screen name, check your first name and your last name. Ensure that both are there, how it appears on Fortis's roster. So good evening to everyone. Place your name, your first and your last name in the chat. And also check your screen name and make sure that it is your first and last name as it appears on the roster. As always, these sessions are recorded and they are viewed by the attendance administrators. And so we do want to ensure that there's no confusion or discrepancies in whether or not you were here. So just take time out to check your screen name. And if your screen name isn't correct, the way I look at the box, on the right side, there are three little dots. And if you click them, a menu pops out. And one of the selections is rename. You click that and you change your name. If you are undergoing a name change and it has not occurred, so make sure you list whatever's on Fortis's roster so that they both match. In the event that I lose connectivity, just stay right there. I'll log in on my second device. I don't intend to, but you just never know with connectivity what will actually happen. All right. So good evening again to everyone and welcome to week one of transitions. For those of you that are just coming in, go ahead and place your name and campus in the chat and check your screen name and make sure that it matches how it is on the roster. And by now, I know you probably all are accustomed to that, but just a remind you every time. As always, these sessions are recorded and they are viewed by the attendance administrators in addition to the recordings, as though is the chat. So just make sure that, when we are on, that if you're not speaking, just make sure that you're on mute because we don't want to record anything that, we don't need to hear or see. So welcome again. I'm Dr. Ford. We've been here a couple of years now in various courses, in both programs, the RN program and also the LPN program. So you all are here at the end. Congratulations to you all. You're almost there. Just a few more steps to go. So for the most part, I think you should be enrolled in at least two courses, transitions, and I can't remember the name of the other course, but just make sure that you are at least two courses. There's a course that also runs parallel to this one, so just make sure, and there may be some situations where that does not apply. But generally, if you are enrolled in transition, you should be enrolled also in at least that other course. And if you're not, you want to check with your campus team just to make sure that you are on the correct path and you have the correct courses. It does not happen often. Every now and then, the scheduler, whatever that automatic process is, the algorithm will get mixed up. So, just make sure that you're checking with that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We do have to go through our PowerPoint, and we will take our first break at the end of the first hour. In the event that you need to be away from the camera, make sure that you place a message in the chat to me. Don't send it out to everyone. For example, if you need to step away to use the restroom or something like that, just make sure you place a message in the chat as to why you're not on camera. Okay. All right, I'm going to share my screen here. So after this first week, you all, to me, especially after the first exam, time goes by really fast. So I will encourage you to make note of, get your calendars together, look at your schedules, look at work, home, all those different things that you're responsible for. And, kind of look and see what you can put on pause, what things you can delete, rearrange, because it's going to take some time to get your studies in. Some of you all have courses with clinicals, so just be thinking it through and what you need to do for you as we talk about these things over the next couple of weeks here. Okay, so welcome to leadership. Online learning. What is online learning? Of course, we are just not in the same physical space, but the same expectation is there for you to take ownership in your learning, to complete assignments, to take exams. You're responsible for completing your required coursework every week. There's something to do every week. The only difference is I see it as we're not in the same physical space, but it has the same integrity, the same intent, which is to arm you, to equip you with foundational knowledge to move on into your nursing career. So for any issues, computer access, course questions, grading concern, you want to start with your instructor for your courses. In the event that I can't resolve or don't have an issue, a resolution for your problem or concern, of course, we will include our course lead, which is Dr. Mary Tenza, and also Dr. Brown, which is our online dean. Now, this information, this PowerPoint will be shared with you. In addition to that, in all of your courses about your instructor, there's a tab where you can always readily find our contact information. So communication adequate, you want to state your thoughts in a courteous, positive, and respectful manner. We do want to be mindful of how we express humorous or emotional statements, because sometimes we don't mean any harm by what we're saying. But if it's not appropriate, if it's not based on the concept that we're discussing, we want to just, maybe just stay away from those conversations, because sometimes things can be misinterpreted. So you want to keep your comments relevant to the discussion topic, whatever it is that we're talking about. We do want to be considerate of others, their experiences and feelings and perspectives. Be sure to use proper language and do not use slang, because with that, you can be misinterpreted as well. Of course, you all know, do not type messages in all caps. This gives the impression that you are yelling. So we will be talking about getting into your groups for your group 10 project. And so several means of communication. And most of the time, students want to use like WhatsApp, text messaging, or whatever. So, but just keep in mind when you are discussing, exchanging information back and forth, that is even appropriate. So there's no misinterpretation about, what is being said. So the online courses have specific start and end times. Your classes are scheduled on a specific day with a start and end time. These are mandatory live sessions, just like the classes that you take on campus. We meet once a week, the online courses. Course activities, they will include, we do have that one project. It's not due until week 10. And then we have lesson activities. Remember, your lesson activities, you can turn in, you can complete that more than one time. So you want to shoot for that highest score. Now, for your adaptive quizzes, you have one time on that adaptive quiz, and it does have 50 questions. So just make sure that you keep that in mind as you sit down to complete that quiz, that you have the time. In addition to that, make sure that you've covered the required reading so that you can do your best on it. And then, we do have 3 exams. And in addition to the 3 unit exams, we do have the HESI. Due dates, according to the syllabus week, they're posted in the course shell. Remember, you can always work on, usually your information, your activities, your assignments, they're going to open up on that Monday. So you don't have to wait until that due date to turn things in or start working on it. Matter of fact, you may start earlier, because if you're taking more than one class and you have work, school, clinicals, and all those things, that will help you keep a nice balance if you start to do some things a little bit earlier than they are actually due. So as is student standards of student personal conduct, academic integrity, all incidences of academic dishonesty and violations of academic integrity will be disciplined. So this is just a few things here. So we can't list everything, but here's some examples. Cheating in all forms, plagiarism, submission of work of another person for credit, or failure to properly cite references for any work which is not original to the student, copying the work of others, allowing another student to copy from that student. So that in that group project that you're going to do, we don't have a paper in this course, but we do have that group project where you're gathering information and you will present it to the class in a PowerPoint, and you will actually have to discuss it, and it's a full presentation. But one of your slides should be a reference slide, because that information is not original to us. So we've got to give reference to where we have that from. So we do want to make sure that we properly cite whatever sources that we're using. Unauthorized use of notes of materials in exams, making, if we're taking pictures of things, just stay away from all of that. Forging or altering assignments, unpermitted collaboration, giving or receiving aid on the exams or other academic assignments, allowing others to copy or use work that is not his or her own, providing answers from graded assignments to others. Again, this list is not exhaustive. So just if it's not your own work, just stay away from it. Even a lot of times we even put examples out there for you just to look at, but it's not meant for you just to copy and paste that and turn that in. You do want to avoid sites that promote cheating. This is real, you all. These sites are being monitored. I don't know who it is and how they do it. Don't even get tempted to just go see what's there. Use of these sites does not promote honor, ethics, or integrity. These sites are being monitored. Will you be notified? Probably not until whatever happens inside the site. I don't really know, but I do know that they're being monitored. That's why we're letting you all know. Being found on these sites will place you on a heightened monitoring of your work for academic integrity violations. Referencing these sites or submitting work found on these sites will result in a 0 for the assignment. This may be enough to cause for course failure. Don't even go in there and just see what everybody's looking at. Just stay away from it. A second incident involving these sites will result in course failure. Utilizing these sites, posting and downloading will put you at risk from being dismissed from the program. Your campus and upper administration will also be involved in the decision making. If they are not on your list of resources in your course, do not use them. Now, here's a list here, but of course, this is not all of them, just too many to list. And we'll talk about AI here in a few minutes. We do have some AI guidance as well. Artificial intelligence may only be used as approved by the instructors on selected assignments. Students must disclose all AI use and must submit their original work along with the AI enhancements when it is submitted for grading. Students may not submit only AI generated assignments. So the code of ethics, nursing, I don't know how many years now, we're the most trusted profession because it is an honor system. It's expected for you when for example, if you're administering medications, that you go through your medication administration rights. If you notice a change in your client or you have a lab value that needs to be reported, that, we do those things that are for, the betterment of our patients. So the code of ethics serves the following purpose. It is a succinct statement of ethical values, obligations, duties, and professional ideas of nurses individually and collectively. So right now you're under your preceptor or your mentor at clinical sites, but pretty soon, once you pass that NCLEX, and even before then, some of you all will get those temporary license, and you will be the person that's leading that team in that setting that you'll be working in. Code of ethics is an expression of nurses' own understanding and of its commitment to society, of providing that best care, reporting things when things need to be reported, following policies and procedures, and then working within that Nurse State Practice Act. Attendance in online courses, you all, make sure you make note of this right here. Anytime that you are late logging into a course, if you are absent, make sure you're jotting it down, because what happens is over time, all that time adds up. And I'm going to make sure I read through this slide bullet point by bullet point so we don't miss anything. So usually my Zooms are open at least 5 or 10 minutes ahead of time. You want to log in. Even if you come to the waiting area, you want to make sure you go ahead and log in, because that 1 minute equals 15 minutes of time being docked from you. Okay. Attendance will only be recorded during your assigned live session time. So what does that mean? If you miss this class, Like there's another class running at the same time as ours. There are other this same classes on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Whatever class your schedule indicates, that's the class that you should log in. Well, what if I miss this class on Wednesday? Can I just log in on Dr. Tenz's class or Dr. Martinez's class? No, you will be only marked present or absent on the class that you are assigned that's on your schedule. Attendance is taken by the instructor during the live session. So again, if you have not placed your name and campus in the chat, please do so. Remember, Zoom time stamps everything. Even if you come to that waiting room and I have you there, you are marked. That waiting room includes you, indicates that you are here in this class. There might be a little small delay for you coming into the main course, but you are here. So it's time stamped. It shows what time you actually got to the waiting area and what time you actually logged in. To be counted as present in class, you must sign in with your full name. That's why I asked you all to place your name, your first and your last name in the chat. Then I asked you all to check your screen and look and see if your name appears, how it appears on the roster. Is your first and last name there? You need to change it if it does not match. A lot of times when we're on different devices, and sometimes the device that we've been on for a while, it will, I'm not sure, it'll pick up the device name. It might even, if someone else uses your device, it may pick up their name. So always check to make sure, because we don't want any confusion about whether or not we were actually present. Because we placed our name and campus in the chat and we made sure that our first name and last name was on the screen. And then I did mention if you're undergoing a name change and it has not officially happened, make sure that you log in. Make sure your name shows how it appears on the roster. All right. So you are expected to be on camera the entire time. Make sure it's not pointed toward the ceiling. During our break time, we can turn our cameras off, and then but the recording still plays. So just make sure that that you remain on mute and nothing is being recorded that should not be recorded. Okay. If you have to step away from the camera, again, place a message in the chat as to why you're not on camera. Just send it to me, because like I said, the attendance administrators, the registrar's office, these things are viewed, and we don't want any time docked or any time unaccounted for. Is why we're not on camera, because 1 minute turns into 15 minutes. Anyone at work, driving, or in a healthcare setting, hospital room, doctor's office, please do not just send a message. You have whatever going on, because we want you to be safe. We don't want to violate HIPAA. So you will need to be removed from the session. Anyone not coming on camera after being asked to will be removed from the session. Of course, we don't stop class and say, hey, you come on, camera. More than likely, we put a message in the chat. But just make sure that your camera's on. Now, another thing, you want to check your settings, especially before exam day, to make sure that you don't have that setting where if your camera doesn't pick up any movement, it turns off. You want to disable that, because on exam day, if that camera goes off, we're in jeopardy. Anyone not coming on camera after being asked to will be removed from the session. Faculty will verify students' time in class by reviewing the login, logout time on Zoom. Go back and look at the Zooms. Attendance missed will be recorded in 15-minute increments. So if you are late 1 minute, 2 minutes, 15 minutes, it equals that you are late 15 minutes. So once you pass the 15-minute mark, for example, if you're late 16 minutes, that equals 30 minutes being late. Anyone without posting attendance 14 days in a row, this is 2 sessions. We only meet once a week. So 1 absence equals 7 days. 2 absences equals 14 days. Will be dropped from the course without notification. So if this class day and time is not best for you, you want to go ahead and be talking with your campus dean, and Dean Brown online dean before the week is over. I don't think we have any classes that overlap. In the past, we've had maybe once or twice where a class, for example, ended at 4:30 and the next class started at 4:30. So I don't think we have any overlap like that. But be looking at your schedule, step back and look at everything that you're responsible for: work, home, all of those things, family, and see. And this is for all of your courses, if the date and times is going to be best for you. Because if 1 minute turns into 15 minutes. And then there's no makeup for missed attendance, you all. No makeup for missed attendance. So let's look at this one right here. Attendance is taken daily. Okay, and it's turned over to the registrar's office before the end of the class day. Early departures, tardies, class cuts, they're still recording those quarter hour 15 minutes. A period of less than 15 minutes will be counted as quarter hour absence. So again, an example is if you're late 1 minute, 5 minutes, that equals 15. If we are late 16 minutes, 20 minutes, that equals 30 minutes. Attendance records are maintained by the registrar as part of your permanent academic record. Students with chronic absenteeism in excess of 20% of the scheduled hours of a course may receive a failing or reduced grade for the course. So what this is saying in essence is a person can fail based on their attendance. So for example, if someone has a 78% without rounding and their attendance is in the excess of 20%, a whole grade below would be less than that 78%. So someone can fail because of attendance. Someone can fail because of homework. So I just want to make sure that we understand that 1 minute too, it does count. Log in, the class is usually open. Like I said, that Zoom is usually, it's rare that I don't have it open 5 or 10 minutes before time. All right. So again, students who are absent more than 20% of scheduled time will receive a full letter grade deduction at the end of the term. So if you are, for example, a student has at least 78% as their average on that KGA, and then their homework is at least 78% also, but then they have that excess of 20% of missingness from being present, that grade drops a whole letter grade. And this is in your handbook. The online office will pull attendance weekly. A student who is at 5% scheduled time absent will receive an email through Campus View notifying them as such. So make sure that you can get in your Campus View. Make sure you have access to Campus View. Ensure that you have access to Outlook as well. And of course, I know you all have access to Canvas. But if you don't have access to Campus View or your Outlook mail, and just make sure that you reach out to your campus dean so that a help desk ticket can be placed, because you're going to be missing notifications in communications in both of those resources, databases. A student who is at 10% of scheduled time absence will be required to meet with me and the instructor, so course lead and myself. And then a student who is at 15% of scheduled time absent will be required to also, when we bring in the campus administration. The level of intervention will be reliant upon the amount of time missed, and a student may not receive all levels of warnings prior to missing that 20%. So yes, the algorithm is for the student to be notified, but you might not get notified prior to missing that 20%. So keep up with your times that you're logging in and out of these classes. And also if you're actually altogether absent, make sure that you're doing it so you can keep up with your time and hopefully stay under that 20%. Now, things happen, and people have to be absent or missing. So just make sure that you have, documentation. If you're sick, flat type, just make sure you have documentation that supports, and go ahead and send that email out, letting us know what's going on. That's why you're being, why you're absent. Of course, also provide that documentation as well. Okay, so this is our uniform and personal appearance policy. Students must be appropriately dressed and groomed, portraying a clean professional appearance, no pajamas, see-through or revealing clothes. If this policy is not maintained, we will revert to the campus classroom policy on uniforms. Just make sure you're dressed appropriately. Remember, these sessions are recorded. We record the sessions and then you go back and review the sessions, when you're reviewing content. So we don't want to be captured in a view that's not appealing or professional. Okay, so alcohol, tobacco, and drug use. Let me just stop pause for one moment. So far, internet's doing pretty good. It hasn't dropped yet. So that connectivity, you all, is something that the sun to be shining and you'll still get dropped. Okay. So the inappropriate use of legal substances such as vaping, tobacco, marijuana, and edibles in tolerant states, alcohol, and certain prescribed medications, as described by the Dean of Nursing, is prohibited and will not be tolerated under any circumstances. Students are forbidden from vaping, smoking, and using tobacco products, including the oral tobacco, and using marijuana, even in tolerant states, while in uniform, including after school activities and while in the public. So if you got that uniform on and you have to use these products, you need to take this uniform off. This projects a negative image of healthcare programs. Students are also forbidden from using these products while in their street clothes on campus or at their clinical site. Because there's sometimes, on campus you don't have to have a uniform on. And then there are certain clinical sites you don't have to have a uniform on as well, but you do have your name tag on. So that is forbidden also. The virtual classroom is a classroom, and it is also should be respected as such. You all just refrain from that until other times in the event that there's something that you need. All right, so to be successful, make sure that you're logging into Canvas at least 4 to 5 times a week just to make sure you're not missing anything. Now, for the most part, we do post on Sundays and Mondays, but every now and then there will be Dean Brown or someone, or of course, they may post information in there. So just make sure that you're logging in. Now, there's a way for you to set up to get notifications, but sometimes I don't think we get those notifications. I'm not sure if there's something wrong with the algorithm. But so at a minimum, just make sure that you're logging in. Just log in, see if there's anything new that's posted. You do want to stay in contact with your instructor in the event that there's an issue. An issue means whatever is an issue of concern to you. It don't make light of if there's an issue. Review course announcements throughout the week. You read them on Sunday or Monday. Go back midweek and just read it again, just to make sure you haven't missed anything. You want to submit all assignments on the week when they are due. You want to do that. Every point matters. Remember, the courses are set up so that all of the assignments are there, all the quizzes are there, all of the exams are there. There is no room for extra credit. So with that being said, just make sure with your lesson assignments that you complete, do it for that highest score. You aim for 80% or 90%. For your quizzes, make sure you only have that one time to take it. It is 50 questions. Make sure that when you sit to take it, that you are, you take those on your own. We don't proctor you like we did with those other courses. So make sure that the time that you sit to take it, you have enough time and you can concentrate. Every point matters. And remember, there's no rounding. So that 78% that we talk about has to be outright. It cannot be 77.999. You want to submit all assignments on the week when they are due. Towards the end of each week, review assignments for the next week. Just keep on moving and start it. If you have access to it, at least look at it, look at the rubric, see what's expected. And therefore, if you have questions, you can, ask your questions. All right. So day one of the term, log into Canvas. You all have done that for the most part. You should have. Open one of your online courses, click the instructor information. You want to keep the Zoom information somewhere, more than one place. Write it down, place it in your phone. And then you want to print or either save that syllabus so you can refer back to it, because that's our little roadmap that will show us, what's due this week, what things are upcoming. You do want to confirm that you have the correct textbook. And once we finish this PowerPoint, we'll look at the textbook list. So confirm that you have the correct textbook and edition in your Canvas shell. It doesn't happen often. So if the edition is incorrect when the required readings refer to, for example, read pages 5 through 10 in chapter 13 and also look at the table that's on page 8. If you do not have the correct edition, that table And that reading might not be in the book at all. It might be, but it might be in a different place. And like I said, just make sure that you have the correct textbook and edition. It doesn't happen often. Sometimes a textbook is missing from a course shell, and then that edition might be wrong as well. And what do? We submit that help desk ticket, and we let our campus dean know as well, so that we can, get the correct textbook and edition. Doesn't happen often, but it has happened. Okay. All right. So you do want to come to class prepared to discuss concepts. And so we post on that Monday, Sunday or Monday. The courses, the content is open like the week before. Just go ahead and look at that information. After this week, we meet one more time, and then there's exam one. So we meet twice. That time goes by fast, you all. Remember, you more than likely you're taking more than one class. You do have all of these other responsibilities. So you want to see if you can get a nice mix and make sure you give enough attention to your coursework so that you can move forward and move on past this term. You want to attend additional review sessions. Now, we have already posted the review sessions, the dates and times that they will be, and it's a mix. You might can't attend one or two, might can attend one or two, and you might can't attend any of them, but at least at a minimum, commit to going back through your classroom recordings and the links that will be provided for the exam review sessions. So at least commit to that. Meet with faculty to discuss any concepts during office hours, and or just send an email. Well, hey, you have a question about, healthcare law, specifically, intentional torts. Send that in an email. We can do an email exchange. Meeting doesn't mean that we have to log into Zoom, because that might not be feasible, based on your time frame and other responsibilities that you have. You do want to schedule those tutoring sessions if you need them. And, in the email, send, several dates and times and your time zone that you're available in the event that you think you need tutoring sessions. And then if you're having technical difficulties, logging in, you want to contact that technical support, and then just let me know as well. They're really good about getting us, back and up and running if we are having problems with inside the course shell. Just checking my messages. Yes, we usually are open on that. Course assignments are usually open on that Monday, but we posted the announcement on that Sunday. Okay. So students have told us that asking those questions, that one-on-one tutoring, if it's meeting or doing that email exchange, and that it has helped them boost their score. Because remember, we have next gen questions. We're having to think about all different types of settings. We're having to select all that apply. We're having to consider if a person has more than one chronic disease process, and or all the things that hold everything about that person. And so making sure that you have a good understanding of the concept, is going to be key to being able to answer those questions correctly on your unit exams and your HESIs and your NCLEX. And so even if you have for your classes, if you have an NCLEX book and whatever that topic is, you on your own time, you want to, kind of look at some of those questions. Read the rationales for why the correct answer is the correct answer and why the incorrect answer is also incorrect. Because both ways you learn. And you can commit to maybe 3 questions a week. And this is up until you take that NCLEX. Just start looking and reviewing content. I know we have things built into these classes, but sometimes it takes a little bit more and it not much more, but a little bit more reviewing those different contents and looking at those different scenarios. Okay, so here's the grading component. So a huge piece, which is 80%, are the key graded assignments. Those are your 3 unit exams and that HESI. All of that component makes up that 80%. Now, you do have to have 78% without rounding in order for that homework grade to be turned on, or for that homework average to be considered. Okay. Then the homework makes up the 20%. That includes those quizzes. It doesn't seem like that much, you all, but every point matters. those lesson activities, the group project, and your professionalism evaluation. So you do want to make sure that you are doing your best and that you've gotten um, a good understanding of the concepts. Did you answer it, Courtney? Okay. All right. So a minimum, but we're going to shoot for higher than that. All right, let me share back again. Okay. Remember that quiz, you have that one time to sit and take it. So if you don't have time, don't log in. Wait till you have time to actually complete that whole quiz. All right, so here we go. Homework scores are off weeks 1 through 5. Week 6, we turn the homework scores on. It shows the impact of missing homework. It shows the impact of missing homework, and also it just shows what your grade is. But remember, your grade will fluctuate when we turn those scores on and off. But you gotta keep in mind that in order for homework to be averaged in, once you get to the end, you have to have at a minimum of that 78% without round. So can someone fail because the homework scores were really low? Yes, they can. So you can fail because of attendance, also because the homework scores were really low. They were less than an average of 78%, at least 78%. And of course, with the KGA, the 3-unit exams and the HESI, if it's less than 78%. So then we turn them off in week 8. So of course that score is going to change. It's going to change. So, but it just allows you to see the KGA so you can make an informed decision about what's your next steps, what needs to be done next. Homework scores will stay off until after the HESI exam is remediated. So they're generally off 1 through 5, and then they're back off during week 8 until so that HESI remediation has been completed, that at least that date. So your combined score on all unit exams and specialty exams in the course must be 78% outright or above before any credit is given for the homework. A minimum passing grade of 78% is required for successful completion of the course after homework scores are added. Okay. All right. So week 11. Week 11, just make a note of it because it's going to look different from the rest of the weeks in this term. All HESIs are administered during week 11. In the past, HESIs are generally, especially if you have later classes in this, and this one might occur during this time, but usually HESIs is campus specific. So it depends on the availability of that campus as when and the times that your HESIs will be administered. So if you're taking classes even at 5:30 and thereafter, more than likely your HESI will not be administered during that time. So just put a note in. We usually campuses start sending out information, maybe late week 9, for sure week 10, about what's going to take place on your campus. And some HESIs are on the same day. So if you're taking more than one class, sometimes there's an instance where you take 2 HESIs on the same day. But all HESIs are taken during that week. And if you're taking these late classes, HESIs are generally not given. And they may change this term, but generally they're not. So that's why I said make a note, because you have your schedule set. You got your work schedule, your family schedule. But then week 11, this HESI might be, we don't meet for class, but the HESI for this class might be on Friday. It might be on Monday. So just put a little note and just know that that week is going to look a little bit different. All right. So appeals will not be reviewed if filed more than 72 hours after grades have been posted. So along the way, just make sure that you're communicating if you're late. We're going to talk about turning assignments on time here. In the event that you think you're running late with an assignment, the proper procedure to gain most of your points. We're going to talk about that. So just make sure that you're following the policies and procedures. Any appeal to retake an exam will be denied for any reason, if it's so that you can gain a better score. So, but things happen. And so if something's going on, an issue or a concern, communicate that. We got the exam set scheduled for today. Something's happening, something's going on. You feel in the line for whatever that something is. If it's an issue to you, it's important for us to know. And it's just a matter of us communicating and deciding, is today the best day for you to take that exam? Or is tomorrow the best day? We have that 7 day window. We rather you communicate and we come up with a solution within that 7 day window and you sit and take that exam and do your best rather than you push forward and know that there's an issue or a concern and you don't do your best on that exam because you can't do a retake, appeal for a retake so that you can get a better score. So just, just make sure that you're communicating and, you know, if documentation is going to be needed, just go ahead and get that documentation. For example, if you're going to the doctor or an emergency room, even if it's you, your child, or whomever you're responsible for care, just make sure, for the most part, they know that people need excuses and documentation. But sometimes they forget, so just go ahead and ask for it. All right, so exams, you all. See what time it is. Watching what time here. Okay, we're good. So you must have your 2 devices, laptop and your phone, 2 devices. Make sure you have your chargers for them. Make sure they're both fully charged. Sometimes they're fully charged and something happens with that battery and it dwindles on down. So make sure you have your chargers, your 2 devices. We will have a practice exam that is that you need to take prior to taking the exam. And the reason is to make sure that your computer is compatible with the specifications that's required by ExamSoft. So once we open that up, once we gain access to ExamSoft, we'll push that practice exam out there, and it's not like a for real exam, but it's just to ensure that on exam day that we work through the kinks in the event that there's some specifications on your device that are not required or required by more so required by ExamSoft. So 2 devices, make sure you have your chargers, disable anything that's going to turn your camera off. Because we have these settings and these things are set based on what that algorithm is that they're set to do. So, and you can think, well, I'm moving, but if that computer picks up whatever it defines as no movement, it turns your camera off. If you go off camera while in the exam, you will receive a 0 for the exam. No excuses will be accepted. Please disable those settings. No scrap paper is allowed. Use of whiteboard or protector sheet it can be used. That's that clear thing. You can use that dry erase marker on there. And then usually what we call for is the beginning of the exam to show your board if you're using it back and front. And then, of course, we call for your area to be looked at. And then once you finish with the exam, to show the board erase back and front. And so exams are Zoom proctored, meaning we're going to meet on exam day in the classroom, just like we're here online, unless you want that exam proctor. So we'll talk about that's another slide. So let me just make it through this slide. You must be on camera the entire time with profile view and face fully visible. And this requires that second device. So you can, however your mix is, if you log in on this device, your computer, or however you do it, just make sure that you are in view and your computer, that they both are in view. We must show your ID. So if you don't have your school ID, go ahead and get one because you don't need one for clinicals and things like that anyway. So you got to have your ID. Failure to show photo ID or not be fully visible at any point may result in exam or course failure, you all. Got to show your ID. And then you have to be on camera. Must show complete testing environment. We'll ask for you to call for the 360 view of the testing area. That includes the desktop, walls, all sizes of computers, chairs, floors, and in the testing area. Must show your wrist and your ears if they're covered. If a tester has religious exceptions, please ask to discuss the issue and just notify us. Appropriate accommodations will be granted. And do not assume that we know about individual requirements. So even if you've taken me for another course, this course or whatever, each term, go ahead and turn in your accommodations every term to each professor. In the event that you think you need accommodations, I'm not sure what that process is, but I would encourage you to Start the conversation with your campus dean to see, is there an application process, and what is it that you need to do so that you can have those accommodations granted. All right, so exams may not be repeated to improve a grade. So if you have any issue, connectivity, I don't know, stomach hurt, doesn't feel well, I don't, an issue that may impact your performance. I can't name them, but if something is going to impact your performance. It is simple as communicating that, send an email. We come up with a date and time. We have that 7-day window. I'd rather you take an exam, like I said, we're scheduled today, and you take that exam on Friday if that's going to allow you to do your best, because you cannot repeat that exam to improve your grade. Even if during the exam that you're having something arises, either connectivity issues or whatever, please let us know, which we have a slide on that. I'll just hold that into that moment. Contact your instructor with issues after you have submitted that exam. You've taken the exam and push the submit button. You've removed any ability for us to work with you, because we can't just go back and undo that. Talk to us to reschedule before you test. If you're going through anything that will prevent you from doing your best, including but not limited to, if you're ill, child is ill, evicted, experience an emergency, car accident, death, illness to a family member, documentation must be provided to prevent the 10% deduction. But any issue, if it's affecting you, you think that you're not going to do your best. I'm not making light of it, and I don't want you to make light of if you have something going on. Of course, this list does not list everything. It could be something happened to your pet, whatever. We have that 7-day window because don't want you to do your best. And in the work setting, that would be a day that you wouldn't go to work, because remember, you wouldn't, if an issue's going on, it's going to cause you not to provide the best care for your clients, because we want you to be safe and your patients to be safe. So that would be a day that you like, nope, not coming. You ought to have whatever going on. All right, so exams. Missed exams will be held to the late work policy. Exams missed without prior notice will result in a 0. So if you just don't show up, there's no communication, that's a 0. Exam missed for personal reason will result in a late penalty with notification. So if something's going on, just have your documentation. Remember, it says documentation must be provided to prevent that 10% reduction, because you want all your points. Okay. Exams missed due to an emergency does require the documentation. This documentation, of course, we'll submit it to Dean Brown, your campus dean, so that they know what's going on. And then this notification must occur within 24 hours of the scheduled exam. Documentation must be presented prior to exam being rescheduled. So put it in writing, let us know what's going on. And of course, if you have the documentation at that time, put it in that email as well. But if not, you do have time to get that documentation. Any exam not rescheduled within that 7 days of the class time will result in a 0. Okay. Anyone with accommodations, you need to notify every instructor every term, even if you've had that same instructor for the same class or for other classes at the beginning of the term. Just because you had accommodations last term, we might not know about it. It's not something that's passed on through, instructor to instructor. Notifications less than 10 days before an exam may not be able to be granted in time. There's a process that must be followed. So if you already don't have that accommodations and you think that you might, 10 days, we got the first exam is in week 3. So start that conversation tonight with your campus dean, or for sure by tomorrow, so you can see what is required for you to go through that process. Okay, so exams are held during your scheduled class time, exceptions only with written approval by your faculty and copy to the National Dean Online Dean. What is this talking about? Thought we could have our exams proctored on campus. You can. In that communication, that email you send, you find your proctor and include the proctor, the campus dean, and Dean Brown. That's the National Online Dean, and myself in the email. And usually these later classes, proctors, sometimes they're still there. on campus, but sometimes they may want to do it an hour before this time. This time is not too late, but for sure those classes that are later than this, the campus, the proctor has to be approved by the dean. There has to be a location, and you want to make sure that the exam space is appropriate for you. So if you already know when exams are in your classes, and students want exams proctored on campus for the most part. If they are, if it's closer, if they're already on campus, if there are distractions, they don't think they can do their best in a different setting, for whatever that reason is. But you want to give that 72-hour notice for so that a person can, you have your proctor so they can arrange their schedule and get a place for you. Because we do know that campuses, they do have different events and things on campus. And so the space that you might be using, all term on exam days, it might not be available. So you do want to start that communication back and forth early. Campus dean, whoever the proctor is going to be, and Dean Brown and myself, make sure that we are in on that. And so this class, it is the seat time is, what is it, 100 and I forget the number of minutes, but we take our exams at the beginning of the class. And then, we come back, we allow that 75 minutes for the exam, and then we have enough time to come back and finish the class out. So in the event that you have an exam proctor on campus, and for example, if your proctor needs to administer the exam at 4:30 or at 3:30, you will take that exam, and it's been approved by campus dean, Dean Brown. 3:30, you go in and take the exam. In that in your email, I'll let you know what time to log into class, which will be after everyone finishes their exam and we come back for the content. So you would not take your exam on campus and then sit in class the 75 minutes that the other students are taking their exam. And you just would log in. I'm doing that at that time that I'll let you know when to actually log in for class. So be looking at your schedules and see what's going to work for you. Make sure look at what you have going on because you want to do your best because we can't repeat those exams. Yes.
Excuse me.
Mhm.
I have accommodations and I'll send all that to you, but you're saying that when we do our exam, we have content to go over after the exam is done.
For this class, this is a long class. Look at the
Yeah.
amount of minutes that this class is. This is
Right.
not like, for example, geriatrics. We
Hmm.
took the exam.
Hmm.
That it took the entire course. Community, yes, this class is almost double the class time is that what people are accustomed to. Look at your
So, so
Mhm.
how would that work for me with the extra time that I'm allotted for my exams?
Exactly. So that time will be built in. So for
Oh,
example, if you are if a person that has accommodations, we just gonna say, for example, they are allowed 80 minutes to take the exam. That 80 minutes will be accounted for in the time that I tell people to return.
oh, okay. All right. Okay.
We gonna give everybody that whatever that time frame is, it would be allowed, and
Okay.
then everyone will return when it's time to return.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so if you're having technical issues during the exam, like I said yesterday, I had connectivity issues. The wind wasn't blowing. It was a beautiful day. You just never know. I would not continue to take the exam, but it's on you. But just know if you continue to take that exam, you see all the questions that are there, and you hit submit, you pretty much alleviate any chance of us doing anything about that. You can't come back and say, oh, well, I was having connectivity issues and I just thought it was best for me to just go on and take it. No, if you're having connectivity issues, you want to stop that exam because you want to do your best because you just never know whatever's going on in that atmosphere. So you want to notify us immediately because usually there are two of us in the classroom anyways when you're taking exams, so we'll let you know. Place it in the chat and we'll see if it's going to be resolved. If not, we have that 7-day window. We've had students to push through and they did really well on the exam. They pushed through whatever the connectivity issue was. It's going to be you. We're going to support you in what you do, but just know that if you push through and then the score is not what you want, you can't come back and say, hey, well, I was having connectivity issues. And so can I retake the exam? So you want to notify us immediately. We will verify the issues, look at the number of times the student that you viewed the testing site. ExamSoft records all this stuff. To look at the number of questions that you've seen, And then sometimes you're good to go. It's just exam stop program picks up on something, whatever that is, and then it'll ask you for a reaccess code. And you put it in the chat that it's asking for that, and we'll give you that based on what exam tells us that it is. And then the other thing is too, um, with the updated software, just make sure that you do the practice exam too, but make sure you have the specifications on your device. Because ExamSoft does this thing, where it's detecting, making sure that there's no dishonesty or anything happening or cheating going on during the exam. So you want to make sure that you have those certain specifications. I don't know what they are, but I know during that practice exam, you'll pick up on it. And then ExamSoft they're pretty quick. Even during night classes, late night classes, student have problems. They get on the phone and for the most part, they resolve the issue. But if there's an issue and all of that has distracted from you doing your best, I would say, hey, I need to take this exam tomorrow, the next day, or whenever. But it's up to you. We'll support you in that. So we cannot allow a retake on an exam due to technical problems or other physical or emotional issues when the majority of all questions have been answered by the student or time has run out. So just if there's something emotional going on, physical, technical, and if you think that you are not going to do your best, let's just postpone it to another day. But in the event that you do want to move forward, we'll move forward. But you just can't come back and say, hey, I want to undo that. All right, so specialty exams, they're all in week 11. The benchmark is 900. So remember, you are a healthcare provider. We have signed up to be lifelong learners. We are all the time learning new information, reading and reviewing what is the latest evidence base. And so just make sure that even for the classes, you're at the end. The classes that you started, you took however many terms ago. Start reviewing content for those classes. Because what happens is when you get the NCLEX, HESI specific to your class, but the NCLEX is everything. It's just whatever you sit down and it's about whatever concept. So make sure that you're reviewing all of your content from day one. We're up for exam 3. So you're focused on that content, but you still need to be going back looking at week 1's content. So when you get to week 11 for that HESI, you will remember and you would have identified the concepts that you struggled with, and then you will have that good foundation to answer that question, no matter how it's presented to you. As you know, that next gen and all of that those questions can come in different ways. But if you have that foundation, so after you take exam 1, don't be done with week 1, 2, and 3 information. Go back and just break it up, chunk it up, and look at that information. So specialty exams are given in a proctored environment on campus. When HESI information comes out, remember it's specific to your campus. So if I'm saying, well, we're doing this on my campus, and you don't go by, if we're not on the same campus, you go by what your campus information is. There's only one attempt at the HESI. HESI exams can occur anytime in HESI week. It does not mean that your transitions HESI will occur on Wednesday. It might be on Monday. It might be on Wednesday, but it might also be on Friday. And are scheduled by campus according to the campus availability. We do not meet in class on week 11. Your HESI counts as your attendance. This exam counts as 20% of your testing grade. Out of that whole 80, you got the unit exam, and the 20% of that 80 is the HESI exam. So it does count. That's a lot. The benchmark for the exam is 900, and we have our scores have dropped a little bit. Our average conversion score this past term was 77.87. The prior term, it was, I want to say, like 90 something. But we are outscoring nationals. But students said that they have had to put in the extra time to go back and look at those concepts. It can be done. We've had students that made almost perfect scores on HESI. So you can do it. So don't be discouraged. Just putting in the time. And we are almost at the time for our first break. So, and you all let me know here. So the plan usually is to do 5 minutes, because you're stopping. If you have to go use the restroom or something like that, you put in a message in the chat to me. So you can do that. If you need to grab a bottle of water, you're doing that as we're going along with our content. At the end of every hour, we stop and do a 5-minute break. And then that last 15 minutes, we push it on the end. So our class will actually end, class ends at 8:11, but because we push that other 15 minutes, it ends at 7:56. So we can change that up, but for the most part, students like that, just that little 5 small minute break, and then they have to do something in between. You just go ahead and do that, but return. But anyways, excuse me, that's our plan. So come back at 6:36. We'll see you in 5. This recording still plays, you all. So turn your cameras off. Make sure that you're not on open. Making sure that you're on mute. 6:36. Let me plug up my
Hey, Dr. Martin. My laptop, this is Tanaja. My laptop frozen, so I just logged in on my phone. I'm restarting it. So you might see me. I'm staying on my phone until my laptop get on and switch back over.
Okay.
All
And
right.
so put that in the chat as well, just so that
Okay.
those registered people won't, it won't be no any question. You said it,
Okay.
but it's there to thank you. You just never know. I don't know if it's something in the atmosphere or the products, but
You're
anyways,
right.
yeah. Stay street.
Hey, I have a question.
Mhm.
Hey, for our exams, will we have like a study guide,
You have they call it a blueprint, which
a
essentially is
blueprint?
still just your concept. So
Okay.
it comes from the concepts. Your required reading is every week. So yes, you do. We call it a blueprint. It's the word that this 2.0 gives it. That's what they call it. So exams, scores are not given on the day you take the exam. There should be an exam analysis after the last class take their exam. And you do want that exam analysis to take place because during the exam analysis, you just never know exams, questions, something may not be in the question correctly. The answer choices might be keyed incorrectly. You want that exam analysis to take place. Yes, you do want your score as quick as possible. And we do give it to you after the last class take their exam. And it's usually on Friday. The last class, I have to look back and see if the last class is still Friday midday. So we meet and go over all the questions, and then shortly after, you get your exam score. We don't give thumbs up and thumbs down. That information isn't given out prior to the score. All right. Well, my little PowerPoint went away. Let me find it again here. There it is. All right. So we were talking about the HESI. So HESI exams can occur anytime in HESI week. So remember, I told you to make a note. Week 11, more than likely, is not going to look like the rest of the term. Just an example is you have a class on, Friday mornings. That Friday morning, HESI might actually be Monday evening. So, but it's campus specific because it's based on their availability. So usually no later than week 10, but sometimes campuses will start sharing that information by the end of week 9. So you can be preparing for what you need to do and where you need to be at. And then again, if you are taking more than one class, all the HESIs are in that same week. Sometimes it may fall on the same day. You might not think it's a lot right now. In addition to that, unit exams, if you're taking more than one class, it doesn't happen all the time, but most of unit that first exam and that third exam, sometimes it falls with those classes have those exams on the same day as well or in that same week. But nevertheless, just look at your schedule and all of your schedules and responsibilities and just kind of, start planning your time, putting things on pause or rearrange things as you can. And most of the time, that's what it is, us just having the opportunity to sit down and make sure that we've covered the content. And so in order for us to do that, we have to, rearrange our schedule or you look at the schedule and put ourselves on our schedule. Well, at 10 o'clock, 10 a.m., I'm reviewing my content for this class. At, midday, I'm reviewing my content for that class. So just having the opportunity because you have to know the concept. You have to have a good understanding of the concept in order to answer the question. The questions, remember, they're going to rarely ask you, what is an apple? Most questions are you're going to have to know what an apple is and apply it to the situation in order to be able to answer the question. So um, just make sure we understand the concept. All right. So remediation is mandatory to receive your HESI score. So that score is there, but it is not valid unless you complete the remediation. And their remediation is based on time. So, for example, if you made, like the students that made the 99, they still had to sit that 1 hour and review and remediate content Remember, just keep in mind the bigger picture is just not just this class, is you providing that best care for your clients. Once you get your license in whatever setting that you're working in, is that you want to sit for that one time for that NCLEX and pass it and move forward. And so even after you pass all your courses, you still are prepping for that exam. You're still prepping. And even to maintain your license, guess what? There's a required amount of information, that the hours, time that's going to be required by your state board of nursing for you to continue to be what they call them continued education units or credits. So that's just part of it. We are committing to be lifelong learners. So remediation consists of completing 100% of your remediation time. The way it's set up, it creates these packets for you. And so those packets are created based on these learning gaps that it has identified based on how you're selecting your answers. So those packets, you might finish before the hour. For example, you made a 99.99, and so you may finish before the hour, but you still have to be looking at different content for that hour in order to meet this requirement. If you made a 8:42, your package may take you more than 3 hours, but you've met the requirement once you are at that 3 hour mark. Now we'll post this again so that you can look at your score and then see what's required in order to get your HESI score. Okay, time will be dependent upon that HESI score. Remediation packets, there you have until 11:59 on that Monday of week 12. And then failure to complete 100% of remediation will result in the HESI score of 0. So if you made a 99 on the HESI, conversion score 99, and then you don't do the 1 hour, then that 99 doesn't count based on their policy. And this is what we signed up for, to meet the time requirement. Another thing that comes to mind where we're saying this, you all, week 12. Usually campuses in the past now, there are some times that we went beyond Wednesday, but if it happens, you will be notified. Usually, lately, the last couple of times, campuses have been closing on that Wednesday. And so for us that have had Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday classes, we had to, meet in that week 12, you all, with attendance. Make sure that you meet for that week 12. We're in class maybe like 10 minutes, but it is a requirement based on the rule book that you must meet. There's not a time requirement, but you must meet for week 12. Well, we will let you know if we have alternate days that week. Because if the campus is closed on Wednesday at noon, that means we would have to meet on a Monday or Tuesday. And like I say, it is not a big thing, because if you can't meet on that Monday and Tuesday at the times we posted, communicate that, and we'll find time for you to meet. So just put a note on that too, to look into that. So if you have classes Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, it might not occur this term, but it might. And so if those campuses close by noon on that Wednesday, we're going to meet on a Monday or Tuesday. And if the times that we post are not good for you, then you communicate that, and then we'll come up with the time that is for you. But for the most part, like I say, that week 12, we just go over like the stats, how we feel as an average, how we feel, how we match according to national. We usually look at those scores. All right, so you need to make note of this late work policy. Every point matters. So first of all, you want to just submit your work on time. But we do know things happen sometimes. The day of, the day before, things happen. At that moment in time, pause, log into Outlook, send an email with whatever is going on. I am not going to be able to turn this work in on time. So then usually you'll gain that approval from the instructor. And then with that approval, you can still turn that assignment in within that 1 to 7 day window with a 10% deduction. So if that work that you turned in, that assignment would have been a perfect assignment, for example, if it would have been 100 points out of 100 points, because you've gotten that prior approval and you're allowed to turn it in within that 1 to 7 day window, that perfect paper, the highest you can make on it would be a 90. So you want all your points. So if you have that assignment is due, for example, on Tuesday, and you have it already finished on Monday, go ahead and submit it. I'd rather do that than something happens and then you can't get into your device, because things be happening with these devices now. But just know that there is a late work policy. Things happen beyond our control. Go ahead and communicate that in an email and then gain that approval. Turn it in within that 7-day window. You do have those 7 days with that 10% deduction. After the seventh day, day 8, 9, 10, 11, and so forth and so on will result in a 0 for the assignment. And we need all of our points. Late work will not be accepted without prior approval from the instructor. Approved late work submitted by the student will be graded along with other weekly submissions for the next grading period. So, because let's say, for example, we have an assignment that's due in week 2. The student has sent the email. The instructor has approved. Yes, go ahead and just make sure you get in within that 7 days. And then the next assignment is due week 3. That does not push all of your other assignments a week back. Those other assignments are still due when they're due. So it does not adjust that because, we're working within that week, the 12 weeks. So we got to get all that stuff done. Usually week 9, we're finished with our content because week 10, you all do the group presentations. 11 is HESI, and 12 we meet. So, all right. So lesson activities, ensure a path, cover key points from your reading assignment. So just when you click inside your Canvas, it'll take you straight to the assignment. Lessons include text, micro quizzes, videos, and assessments to test your knowledge of the content. So just make sure that you're clicking those things and trying to, do your best on it because it's going to build up on. So when you get to that exam and that HESI, NCLEX, that you'll have a strong foundation about content. Your instructors will have access to the dashboard that displays the student's performance and time spent in each lesson. The lesson activities represent 5% of your grade. 5% doesn't seem like a big number, you all, but every point matters because remember, you cannot rank. Okay, adaptive quizzes. The adaptive quizzes are in short path as well. We'll cover concepts from your reading assignments. So it's all complementing each other. The reading assignments, the different lessons, activities, then you take the quiz, and then you have the unit exam. Each quiz has 50 questions. Make sure that you have the seat time because quizzes are personalized to the student and will help you increase your mastery of the content. Quizzes are taken at home and not proctored for this course. I'm not speaking for any other course because we do have courses that we do take quizzes in class, but not this one. This one is not proctored. Only the exams, the 3-unit exams. They must be taken in one session. So can you start the quiz? Oh, I did 25 questions. I'll get the rest of them tomorrow. No, there's only one attempt. So make sure that you have enough time to sit down and take that quiz in that one setting. And there are 50 questions. The adaptive quizzes represents 5% of your grade. That's still a lot because we want all our points. So we do have professionalism. It is a key component of your success in the academic environment and in your career. So this is done weekly. And then, of course, the rubric is there. The rubric has these 4 main topics: attendance and punctuality. It mirrors your workplace. You get your, what do they call your evaluation some places do it every 3 months, 6 months, and every year. And they look back at, what happened during that time. Were you showing up for work? Were you absent for work? Attends each class in full and arrives on time. Engage in respectful and constructive interaction with both peers and instructors. Just make sure that what you're saying is conducive and is positive, for the setting. Respect for diverse perspectives, value and consider the viewpoints of the ideas of others. You want to adhere to the guidelines. You want to follow the dress code and academic integrity rules as detailed in the student handbook. Complete all assignments promptly. Actively participate in class, activities, and discussions. We'll have times where we will say, put your answer in the chat. We'll go to small group. We'll come back to whole group. Just making sure that you're engaged because this is a safe space. We shouldn't feel that we can't voice our understanding of a concept that we're discussing. And if you get it wrong, we're going to bring you back. We're going to, reinforce what the correct answer is about the concept. Okay, this feedback is intended to help you measure your progress, identify areas for improvement. Our goal is to support you in developing professionalism skills that are necessary for your future success. Like I said, this part right here mirrors your work evaluation that most people get at a minimum of every year. Some places they do a little bit often than that. The professionalism evaluation is 5% of your grade. We want all of our points, so just making sure that you remember that that is there also. The group project will guide the development of professional goals relative to the profession, and we'll look at that. So usually we wait until week 2 to put you in your groups because you need to be thinking about whether or not all of your classes are going to be right for you as far as date and times. So in the event that you think you need to change, and that we're just not talking about this class, look at all of your classes in your schedule. You need to go ahead and put an email into your campus dean and Dean Brown so that change can be made by Friday. So when we start week 2, you're in the correct place. And so that's why we wait until week 2, because usually if a class is going to be canceled, it more than likely it's going to be canceled by Friday. If a class is going to be combined, it's going to be combined by Friday. And they do have that window where you can request to change a class. And I think it ends on Friday. It might even be Thursday. So if you're thinking one of your classes is not going to allow you to do your best because it's on, Monday at 8 a.m., go ahead and put that in writing so that you can get that done. So all those changes would have been made for sure by Monday morning. And so when we meet next week, we'll go ahead and put you in your groups. Usually we try to accommodate if you're on the same campus. Sometimes we can't, but nevertheless, with that group project, we're going to look at the different, and we'll give you those topics on next week. You're going to look at the different roles, responsibilities, the settings, and everything regarding, the profession that you have chosen. And so also with that, this group project, in order for it to be complete and your best work, you will have to meet the size in class. You will have to, and students have decided to do emails, text messages, or whatever those different modalities that you can use to communicate. It's not due until week 10. Seems a long way off, but remember, you have work, school, play, you have family, you have other courses. So next week, at least we're going to do introductions. You are going to try to decide on how you're going to communicate and start framing what you're going to do for that project. There is, and we'll talk more about it. There is not a slide count, but there is a time count. I think they says 5 minutes. So you all will create this PowerPoint. In the past, you all do really well with those projects. Even if you run into snags or whatever, deciding on what you should put in the project, you all work it out because that's all part of it on the team anyways. And so you do your presentation during week 10. We listen to you. And usually they're guesting in from across the campuses and stuff. They come in and listen to you all, but you all do really well with that. So don't be afraid of that group project. You all rock with that. Okay, so for each of your assignments, make sure that you are clicking the assignment and opening it up. Look at the assignment overview and then also the assignment details to ensure that you have completed that assignment according to what is required. So for example, I think our next slide shows this. Okay, looking at that rubric, once you open up that assignment details, for example, if it says you need 3 paragraphs and you only have 2 paragraphs, don't turn that assignment in because you want all your points. That's not your best work. Your best work is at least those 3 paragraphs with content pertaining to whatever it says. So just making sure that you're looking at those rubrics and look at those objectives when you're doing those required readings, when you're looking in SurePath, completing your lesson activities. Just take the time to read all of that because it tells you, hey, once finished with this assignment, you should have a better understanding of whatever the content is. So therefore, it gives you a kind of a pathway that you should be gauging whether or not I do know this content or I'm not so sure about this content. I may need to ask a question about this concept because this thing says, the objective says I should have a better understanding of or be able to list 5 things about this concept. And, I'm not able to do that. So let me reach out and get that one-on-one tutoring or some clarification on what else do I need to understand about this concept. Okay, so for papers and projects, even your project, you have to, even though it's not a paper, you still have to cite your sources. Because remember, it's not our own information. We do want to use information that is no more than 5 years old. Purdue OWL is pretty good about assisting you citing those sources. So that is a resource, and it's inside of your Canvas. I think it's up there in I think it says student resources page, but it'll take you to Purdue OWL. Only use nursing journals or textbooks. Make sure you have sufficient resources for review. So while there's not a slide count on the rubric for that group project, there are certain things you must cover in the presentation. So make sure that you're looking up information that's related to those specific points. And so your best work is to address each one of those points that's listed on that rubric. I talked about no more than 5 years old. Make sure your research relates to the topic. For example, if it's nursing leadership, that PowerPoint should be about nursing leadership, not about tomatoes or lemons. Just make sure what you're presenting to us is about whatever that topic that you've been given. You do want to summarize and paraphrase and put things into your own words, but we still have to cite the source because that is not our own original work. So usually that last slide is your reference slide. There is, like I say, not a slide count, because soon you all may decide for bullet point 1, you may have 3 slides that will cover that information. You all will decide on that. The thing is making sure when you look back at your project, your PowerPoint presentation, look at the rubric and see, have you met all of those requirements that's in there? Because every point matters. You want to get all your points for doing your best work. All right, so to be successful in any of your courses, you want to communicate, plan, review sessions. We have those out. We'll look at that. You want to do tutoring if you need it. And tutoring does not mean that you have to be on Zoom. It could be an email exchange. You all don't be afraid of reaching out saying, hey, I don't understand this concept. I understand this concept to be this. Am I thinking of it correctly? Or however you want to word it, or whatever is going on, whatever question you have about that concept, please communicate it. Even if we need to do one-on-one and it's a time frame that's not conducive for me, Dr. Mary, she'll Zoom in or however you all decide to meet. So don't let it be that you're afraid to reach out for help. It's why you're not doing your best. You do want to read those required readings. That helps you build your concept file cabinet full of information. That helps you to understand the information. You do want to use the course resources, and then you want to put things into priority. Remember, I said look at your schedules, work, play, school, fun. You have a bunch of responsibilities, and all of them are important. So look at everything and decide what's going to be best for you. All right, so let's look at our course now. Transitions to practice. Aren't you all ready? Y'all almost there. Almost there. Let's see here. Let me share. So again, make sure you have access to Outlook. And I know all of you all should have access to Canvas, but make sure that you have access to your Outlook mail as well. Okay, so let's look down here at our syllabus, because we don't want you missing communications. And you may have said, well, hey, I haven't had Outlook all this time. More than likely, you've probably been missing some communication. So go ahead and get it. All right, so our syllabus, of course, it does, give us our course description and all of that. It tells us about the outcomes. We should be able to exhibit fostering positive relationships with patients, family, and the healthcare team. So that's a biggie with our group project. Even if we're on the same group, and you and I, we disagree about what slide 3 should be. We should be able to talk it through and come to a conclusion about what slide 3 really should be. I shouldn't be put out the group because I want slide 3 to be, about whatever, or the color. So, but we should be able to exhibit exceptional communication and interpersonal skills, which foster positive relationships with people on the healthcare team. Because when you're getting ready to go out, you'll be on that team, leading staff, and taking care of your patients. These are our learning objectives here. Okay. All right, right here. Required resources. You want to make sure that you open this up, your reference page, required resources, and reference page. You want to look at this list, You don't have to do it now, but go back and look and make sure you have these in your course shell. It doesn't happen often, but sometimes, for example, Carol and Collier, someone to have the 8th edition. Now, we don't know what it is, but something happens in that algorithm where it'll put the wrong book in the person's shell, or a resource might not be listed in there. So if you look in these resources and these books are incorrect, send an email so we can do a help desk ticket. It doesn't take much to resolve it. Okay, this is just showing you, again, those 3 exams. One HES is just showing you that breakdown again. And this is just a different bit. What you look at modules, this is the same thing, but this is just a different way of looking at it. This layout. I can download it. Let's download it and see. So this kind of helps you keep up. Let's see here. So can I turn have it a different view here? Landscape. Well, I can't change the view of it. Let's see. We'll just scroll down. Okay, yeah, we can see all of it. All right, this right here helps you to kind of stay organized. Sometimes we have so many things going on, and oh, I just need to get back organized. So looking at your syllabus, and you can make notes here, but it shows your topics for that week. So this first exam, we're going to be looking at healthcare law. We're going to be looking at the role of the responsibility of the pen, in modern healthcare. So weeks 1 and 2, these are your content that will be on exam 3, which will be in week 3. So what content do we need to know? Okay, here it is. Week 1 and 2 equals exam 1, which is in week 3. Okay. And then it's here week by week. And of course, it still is in your modules too. It's just laid out in a different layout here. Okay. All right, let's see here. Let's see. We talked about SurePath, SS SurePath in your lessons from your Canvas because it takes you directly in there. I think you can log in a different way, but it's just probably easier for you to do that. Let's look at the exam schedule, the exam review schedule. You might can't meet any of those dates and times. That is fine, but commit to going back through our classroom recordings and the links that will be provided for the exam reviews. Okay, exam reviews for this term. They're all here on this document here. And there are 4 of us. So, if you can, zoom in. Sometimes students just come to listen to the content. Sometimes they come to, ask specific questions. At a minimum, if you're there, make sure that you log in with your name, your campus, and your professor's name. Just make sure when you're logging into Zoom, just do that. So exam 1 is week 3. So our exam reviews start on Sunday. And then, like I said, there's 4 of us, and we have all of them here. So you can go ahead and and there are different times and dates, and you can go ahead and plan your schedule. Or like I said, at a minimum, if you cannot attend those, and I know I'll keep repeating now, but that even though we're going to be talking about the same concepts, you hearing that information over and over again, the way we're set up, we kind of automatically start remembering things. And so you're actually able to quickly identify and select the correct answer here. All right, let me check the chat. Uh-oh, my Zoom is trying to end, you all. Yeah, we're almost halfway there. Stop Zoom. Okay. All right, so before I pull up our PowerPoints here.
Professor, for Um, will after you do the review, will the recording also be on announcement?
Yes, that's where we place the links at. Yes. So the
Okay.
announcement is where you will go and pick up those links. And no matter if there are four of us, we put all the links there in the
Okay.
announcements. So it's not like you just get my recording, you get all four of the recordings.
Okay. Cool.
Yes, exactly.
I'm sorry, Professor. You wanted us to email you on books that we don't have. No, I'm not ever.
I don't know if it's on my end, but I couldn't clearly hear what you were saying. It might be on me. Can you all hear me? Uh-oh. Did I lose you all?
No.
No, I
Okay.
can hear you.
No,
Okay.
I
So
can.
that question, whoever was asking, please ask it again.
I'm sorry, it's because we're in one room because we have lab after. But some of the books are giving us an error message. So do you want us to message you directly to put in the ticket?
And include your campus dean.
Okay.
Yes. I know one time, it's just strange how little things be happening. It was something, is it a message? It's just saying error. We were getting this label message. It's just strange. I don't know what it means, but yes, include your campus dean. And they quickly resolve whatever it was though, but you will get some strange roadblocks. It's like, what is wrong with this thing? But anywho, yes. So yes, to your question. Let's see. I don't know if it's the servers or would it be? Okay. So I'm trying to pull up this PowerPoint here. And so let's just do some what ifs before we go to our content here. So unit exam 1 is in week 3, and then topics will include clinical judgment, ethics, and healthcare law. Those are the big topics. But then, of course, under there are going to be several little sub concepts. So let's see here. So we are mandated reporters. So what does that mean to you? Someone can come off mute and explain what is healthcare workers being mandated reporters, school teachers, mandated reporters. What does that really mean?
Um, we report things like
We're
abuse,
mandatory to
neglect.
report. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
We have time to hear from both of you also, just one at a time. Mandated reporters. What does that mean?
Um, we report things like what's like if something's wrong, like abuse, neglect, stuff like that, as being a nurse.
Okay. Who was the other person? Go ahead.
Wasn't me, but basically you're like it's mandatory that, as a nurse that you report things that are unethical or against what you signed yourself up for, basically.
Okay. So yes, we as nurses, we have a legal responsibility. You are to report, um, to report. Even if you suspect, you don't have to even know all the details. For example, if you're, in that home healthcare setting and the patient you went in and the patient reports, hey, I have some missing money. I have missing medications. And, I had it you know, last week, and the only people that's been in my house has been, blah, 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 blah. And so that's what is that? What is that called? It's a form of abuse, misappropriation of,
Misappropriation.
yes,
Property.
misappropriation of funds. Exactly. And so it, it might not be, you know, that person being physically abused, but that is still part of abuse. We are legally responsible to report that. And so if the patient says, well, the only other people that's been in the house is, the other nurse, we have to report that. We're contacting the state board of nursing, and of course, a investigation will be done. Just because someone states that something has happened doesn't mean that the other nurse actually did whatever. But we are legally responsible to report any professional whom that we suspect of engaging in illegal, immoral, or either unethical activities to the state board of nursing. So failure to report this act is a direct violation of the code of conduct, the code of ethics for nurses. We don't have to know all the details, but it is it does warrant being reported, and also an investigation is done, because people tell things that are not true, but that's why that investigation should be done. So in most states, nurses are required to report abuse and suspected abuse. For the most part, it's as far as I know, it's every state. And so that is, I'm still trying to pull this PowerPoint, but I'm just giving you some what ifs. So just keep that in mind. So the example that I told you earlier, where the questions are going to rarely ask you what is a mandated reporter. They're going to give you a scenario like I just did. And then you're going to have to take what you know about mandated reporting and then decide what is the actions. So we're going to have to apply the information that we know. Okay, let me do another. Let's look at like critical thinking. Let's see. So in the event that we're on shift, just got on shift, and let's see, how do I want to do it? So I pick on the patient that's in room 201. We've got a report, and we go into, we're just making our rounds, and we find our client passed out on the bed, or they're in the bathroom, they're on the floor. What should we be think about? What should be that nurse's first steps? What should be priority? So in the chat, let's use the chat first. Okay, so here's the scenario. We just got report, and we're talking about clinical judgment. And then the question is specifically to asking you, what should we do first? What is priority? We walk in the patient's room, and in room 201, and they're unresponsive. They are, we walk in the room, and they're in the restroom, and they're on the floor, complaining of pain. What should we do first? In the chat, let's do 2 minutes. So take the time to type it in the chat, and you can send your response out to everyone. But remember, the question is asking you, what should you do first? Let me find my little thing here, my little clock in the chat.
You said a non-responsive patient?
One is unresponsive, and then the other one is they have fallen in the room or in the restroom. So what is our first?
Okay, so it's 2 scenarios.
Yes, there are 2 scenarios, but
Okay.
what should be our first response to both?
I have a question. How do I get off the direct message to you?
I know Zoom has been doing this thing. I think it's
Can't
with the
get off of it.
updates. So, okay. Now I don't have that view, but I think I remember. So go to chat, and at the top, it doesn't happen often, but this happened to me before. At the top, there's some little boxes up there, little squares. Go to chat, and one will say new chat.
Let me see if I can find that. Oh God.
Or you can just click 2, where it says 2 in her name, click it, and it should say meeting group chat above.
It won't do it. I tried that. I'm like, oh my God.
Yes, with the upgrades or whatever you call it, the updates, that chat thing has it changes sometimes from day to day. It's how you talk to other people. And so just put it to me. That's fine. That's fine if it won't work right now. So 30 seconds. What should we do first? We walk in the room and something's going on with our patient, whether or not is they're passed out or they have fallen and they have injuries. Let's see what you all are saying. Got 16 seconds left. Again, if you have not placed your name and campus in the chat, please do so. Ensure that your screen name it matches how it is on the roster. Okay.
It won't let me type anything, so I'm sorry.
Okay. Maybe it'll resolve here before long. Okay. So our time is up. I see people saying assess, vital signs, assessment. All right. So let me narrow down so should we, I see your responses. Should the nurse first call the family? Should they call the doctor? Should they start documenting what's going on, or should they assess?
Assess. Would they, or would
Do
they
we
call
Which
agree?
patient we talking about?
Both of them.
You gotta
Gonna
assess
assess
them
and take
always.
vitals.
Well, the patient that
Exactly.
is unresponsive, though,
ABC.
Well, so we
you
check
know,
the first patient and
You
call
still have to
Hold
make
on, you
sure.
all. Wait. So if you hear someone else talking, just hold on. We're gonna get your thing. So what you all are saying, doesn't it still equal assess? We're assessing them, right? I gave you some. We're not calling anybody right then. We're gonna assess. That's why I say it doesn't matter about the scenario. This patient has changed. We are going to assess, and whatever that assessment is, it could be measuring those vital signs, testing that level of conscience. We are going to assess the client, right? We're not calling the family. We're not We're not sitting down writing an incident report. We're going to assess. So think about, and then the question says, we're going to do those other things, but then my question said, which one we're going to do first? We're assessing all the time. Even when we're just passing by our patient's room, we look in there, we looking to see if they're awake, alert, they sleep. What are we doing? We are assessing. So that wasn't a trick question. So what concerns do you have about that scenario? Whether or not the patient was passed out or you're on the floor with the injury? We are assessing, right? No matter what, we are assessing. All right, so here we go. Let's do another one. Let's think about clinical judgment. What should the nurse do? We're talking about our judgment. Let's see here. We have a patient in room 201 who has, let's see, asthma, hypertension. They might even have gout. And so we're going to a one and we're just checking in on our client. Even though we're just checking in, we still are assessing, right? And so the client is having trouble completing sentences. And the client is also doing like a continuous cough. Okay. In addition to that, the client may even have, we can just leave it a little bit more. Okay, that's it. The client has several chronic conditions. The client is having trouble completing sentences. They have this cough. They even may be coughing up something. They may have a productive cough. Okay. So what should we do first?
For
Second.
a patient with a LOC, that's a change in the level of consciousness or whatever, you need to go ahead and do a neuro assessment and then call the charge nurse.
Okay, so our patient, we're passing the patient in room 201. They are alert, but they're having trouble completing sentences.
Yeah, but that's a change. They were completing sentences. That's a change.
It is a change.
Okay, so we need to assess that.
Exactly, but is it LOC or is it a different body system? What's wrong with the person that can't not complete sentences? More than likely, what's wrong?
It may be a stroke. It could be Alzheimer's.
Neurological assessment.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, an assessment. But
they have
why
a
we do that
productive
assessment?
cough. They have
Sometimes if the oxygen is too low, there it makes them confused. So check the
That's what it
oxygen.
is. If a person is having a continuous cough, they're coughing up stuff, they can't complete sentences, they're having something wrong with their gas exchange. And because that gas exchange, there's a problem with it, then it, dominoes effect to all the other things that you all are talking about. But the basis is this person can't complete sentences. It's something wrong with that gas exchange. And so with that being said, they're having this productive cough. They can't clear it. And so what's something that we're going to do? Are we going to call the doctor right then? Should we suction them? Should we offer them something to drink?
We're
What
gonna
we need to
provide
do?
some oxygen for them first,
Yeah.
or set them up.
Change
Maybe
their
set them
position.
up. Yeah,
Okay.
we
So
may
we
need to
definitely
set them
won't
up.
lower the head of the bed. We'll probably
Right, raise it up.
reposition it,
Set them
moved
up.
up,
Yeah.
but most of the time when we reposition people, what do? First, we lower the head of the bed.
Mm-hmm.
So what should we do first? Should we go on and try to get them to clear that airway
Yeah, get them
by
to
maybe suctioning?
maybe.
Okay. So
If
just
they
think
can,
about
if
the
they
bigger
can get a
picture.
productive cough out, maybe we can get them to cough though.
Exactly. That suction may elicit them to clear that cough. So just think about when we reposition somebody, we're gonna have to lower that. We should lower the bed and try to get them up and everything. So that suction, if they have that suction in there, for sure, we're not gonna run out the room and be calling the doctor, not just yet. We should be, if the suction is available and or we can reposition them to get them up. And we may even offer them water, but remember priority. We may do all of those, and that's a test taking tip. When it says priority, when you look at the answer choices, more than likely we will do all of those interventions that's listed, but the question is asking which one we should do first. So which one of those things is going to clear this person out of losing airway, breathing, and circulation? Which one of those things is going to clear them past that part? And then it's going to be that suction. Because if they're having a problem with gas exchange, then we need to get that airway open. All right. So that's how those questions are, you all. That next gen is different. So, but go back to your question, STEM. What is it asking me to answer about this question? Is it just asking me to select all that apply to this scenario, or is it asking me to put things into priority? And so, while I know we can do all of these interventions, which one of these things should I be doing first? All right. Is there a comment, you all? Because I'm hearing something. Check your mics. Be on mute. Okay, I'm getting our PowerPoint pulled up. So that's that next gen, and then and so next gen is a good thing. It's not anything to be afraid of, because what happens with next gen is usually some of you all are working in the healthcare system now. Some of you all, you've been to clinicals. You see how things just happen. So it's not so cut and dry that the question is, hold on, let me just check. Everyone check their mic. Remember, we are being recorded, you all, and I'm talking over the recording so that nothing's recorded that we should not be able to hear. I'm trying to see who that is. Okay. So again, you all, check your mics. If you come off mute, once you finish talking, go back on mute, because we don't want to invade anyone's privacy, because these sessions are recorded. All right. Just checking, making sure. So when it's priority, make sure that we want to select the intervention that addresses ABCs first. Okay. And then thereafter, then we use Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What's on that bottom layer, that bottom of that triangle, those things must be met before we go up. So that helps you to determine what is priority. All right, let's go here. Chapter 5, we're going to look at critical thinking. Let me pull this PowerPoint up. All right, let me share my screen. All right. All right. So this is just and this will be shared with you in the course. These are just an overview of critical thinking. Our ability to focus your thinking on how to get the results you need to make the difference, whether you succeed or fail in a fast-paced healthcare system. So for most part, you have more than one patient. And then you're trying to decide, who should I go see first? You're going to take care of all of your patients, but what should I do first, second, and third? So you're going to look at priority. What helps you look at priority? That ABCs, Maslow hierarchy of needs. So then these little questions and scenarios that I throw out there, they're to help you to improve your thinking and thought process, to refocus, because remember, for the most part, we can do all of those things that you all mentioned. But the question is, what should I be doing first, second, and third? And what helps us to decide that is airway, breathing, and circulation. If interventions are going on where we have the option to select an intervention that will assist someone to improve their airway, breathing, and circulation, that's the intervention we're going to select first, because that is priority. All right, critical thinking is related to the nursing process. That nursing process is an awesome thing. It helps us to keep things structured. Hopefully, it helps us to not forget to assess something when we are taking care of our clients. So ways of thinking, definition of applied critical thinking is purposeful, is informed, is driven by the client and family needs. We could have 3 patients to a 1 and room 202 and 203. They can all have diabetes, but one can have type 1, type 2, one could be now newly diagnosed, one could be in the hospital, just had a hip fracture. So we want to shape is not a one size fit all. It is specific and unique to that client. And we use the nursing process to help, guide our principles and things, our interventions that we will actually complete. We have to have that knowledge of the concepts. What's our understanding of a hip fracture? What are those risk factors? What are some potential complications? What is diabetes? What are some client teaching? So we have to go back. We have to have that strong foundation of the concepts. And watch my time here. We're almost on our next break. Critical thinking is that advanced way of thinking. It's like a problem-solving method. We're always thinking and assessing. Even though we're walking past that client's room, just keeping in there, we still are assessing. We're looking at their level of consciousness. They're alert, they're watching TV, or they're sleeping. Even though we don't exactly go in to approach them up front, up close, we still are assessing. You are all right about that. Used to resolve problems. And critical thinking helps us to find ways to improve the situation, to improve what's going on with our clients. It answers questions such as, how can we do this better? How can we assist the client in achieving the highest quality of an outcome? That scenario I gave you about, the client, not being able to complete sentences and, that productive cough, we came up with a bunch of interventions, but our start was, how can we get this airway cleared, promptly. Critical thinking in the LPN, it involves questioning with meaning. We can do several interventions, but which one should we do first? And it's going to be based on your judgment that comes from your understanding of concepts. That even if you have to go all the way back to the body systems, why is this person having trouble completing sentences? Why the productive cough? What body system does this mostly have to do with? Oh, that's the respiratory. That's gas exchange. This person's having problem moving, exhaling and inhaling, which can lead to the altered mental status of all of those things. Use nursing process in critical thinking. Factors that may influence critical thinking, we do want to take into consideration our client, the things that they value, the goals that they set for themselves. We do want to address whether or not our clients have an understanding of whatever the disease process or whatever's going on with them. Because most of the time, it's not that people are trying to be non-compliant. It's that they don't really understand, well, hey, I need to take this medication and remain upright, in an upright position. I need to take this medication on an empty stomach. Or, they don't realize I need to do this dressing change every day or whatever the instructions are. So we do want to establish those therapeutic relationships, be assertive, not aggressive, give them factual information and make sure that so that they can make an informed decision. Okay. So I want to be good stewards of your time. We're at the bottom of our second hour. We will come back in 5 minutes. So return at 7:36. We'll see you in 5. You can turn your cameras off, but remember this recording still plays. All right, come on back in. So remember, even though we're asking, going back to scenarios, I want to just make sure we do understand when we're checking for that breathing and we're asking the client, are they hurt? And we're checking them to see what their level of consciousness is. All of those things meaning that we're assessing that client. Okay. And then in order to determine priority, of course, we use airway, breathing, and circulation. If there's an intervention that addresses that client airway, breathing, and circulation, that's going to be priority, because remember, we use airway ABCs to determine priority. All right, so let's get back to our PowerPoint. Okay, here it is, right here. Gotta watch my, my time. Okay, so this critical thinking. Sometimes we can just recall, just repeat the information that we have, memorized. But sometimes we have to break down what we know about that client. The client that had all of the chronic disease processes. This client is unresponsive. This client is responsive, but they're, having trouble completing sentences. They have a productive cough. We're having to break down all those complex parts and think about what's our next steps. So critical thinking involves recalling knowledge. What is this concept that we're dealing with? Are we dealing with, an expected response from someone that has a chronic disease process, or is this an unexpected response? Fever, usually pain, those are usually unexpected responses to a disease process. Okay, so critical thinking, comprehension, application, and analysis are what employers expect from us. And because we're leading that team, remember, in long-term care facilities, we're actually the charge nurses. We're those leaders. We're the person that's there for the most part, especially on those shifts, as those shifts pass, like that second shift and third shift, we're the leaders. And so we're responsible for those patients' well-being. All right. The OPN is responsible for many of the judgments and decisions made in healthcare. Even though we have occupational therapists, we have dietitian, we have all these other people on the healthcare team, who's in the middle? Who are they going to come to when they're trying to decide on what their next steps is for that client? They're going to come to you. So you're going to be dealing with a lot of decision making and judgment. So an example, it could be, it doesn't seem like it's important, but they come to you and like you're on the phone, you're scheduling an appointment for the client that's in room 201. They have to go out to have an x-ray done, a mammogram or something. They have to go out of that facility. That client is also receiving, we'll just say, occupational therapy. So while you're on the phone making that appointment for that referral for that client to go to that appointment outside of that facility, we need to keep in mind that, hey, well, for example, if they give us an appointment on Monday at 10 o'clock, we need to keep in mind this client also is receiving therapy. Are they receiving therapy on Mondays at 10 o'clock? Because if they are, do we need not to take that appointment, or can that therapy schedule time be changed? So that may not seem that important, but at the same time, we want that client to still get their therapy and also to go to their appointment. So we're right there in the middle, helping making decisions about that's regarding this client's care. Okay, now this is a scenario. I want you to give you time to look at it, and then I'll come back and just read it. So then I'll give you 2 minutes just to look at, I think it's 2 slides that we have here. Yeah, okay. So 2 minutes to look at this. Let me set my timer, then 2 minutes. Just do some jot noting on your paper about what what you're thinking. Let me get to my timer here. So you are looking at what the information we have about this patient, and you're just doing some jot noting on your paper of what standing out to you that might be something that we need to address. Okay. 45 seconds and we'll go to the next slide. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing from the next slide. Pull information from it that you think might be important. That's gonna help us determine, if there's something going on with this client, what that might be. Okay, and start look at this slide, see if there's any information that might be useful in determining, what our next steps are, or what is of concern for this client. Okay. Okay, 35 more seconds. Again, we are looking at the content that we have about this patient, Miss Jane. We are sifting through and looking to see if any of this information. So essentially, we're looking for any abnormalities, and then some thoughts should be coming together. Does this client have? Do they have? Or should we be doing some interventions? Should be populating in your head. The client might not have, but we should be. Our thought process should be forming. Okay. All right. Let's go on. All right. All right. So using critical thinking, remember, what are the diagnostic criteria for diabetes mellitus? So just going back to your foundation, what are some things some tools or some information? Is it labs? Is it like that?
A1C.
Her A1C, increased urination.
Yeah, the polyurethane.
The symptoms that she's presenting.
And her glucose fasting was very high.
Yeah.
Yes,
So her
fast.
levels are very high.
Okay. Specifically, which ones are you saying that were very high? Someone
Her
said glucose.
fasting glucose level.
Her cholesterol, her
Yeah.
A1C.
Cholesterol, her
A1C and
A1C.
fasting
1C, yeah.
glucose.
Okay. Got it. Based on her labs and symptoms, explain why Miss Harris is likely a diabetic. What you all just said. What initial management steps would you implement for Miss Harris? Again, test taking tip.
Diet change.
Yeah, how to manage her.
Like non-invasive, you would do
Yeah.
non-invasive first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Things
like,
that should be
Non-invasive
changed.
first,
well, I
like
mean
her weight,
non-medical, yeah, like
keeping
non-medical.
her changing her diet.
Losing weight,
Put
yeah.
her on
Yeah.
meds. We need to start to control the diabetes first.
Mm,
Well, you
I
could
would
try to
say
do like
I
the
would say
other stuff first,
non-invasive.
and then like get her to come back a month later to see how her
Yeah.
levels are, and
Check
then if
her blood sugar every day.
yeah, and
Yeah.
if that's not working, then you can proceed to the medication, like start on metformin or something.
That's what I say too. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So someone said come back a month later. Why was that not an answer for what is the initial management?
Because that's not the first thing.
Yeah, that's not like the first thing.
Exactly. That is an intervention we more than likely will do. But again, watch those words. Priority initial. Okay. All right. So looks like we got them all. We got the hemoglobin A1C. It was high. The 2-hour plasma glucose. It was high. The random was high for sure. This person, this A1C, you all, how many months does it look back at those glucoses?
3.
3 months. So the person is sitting before us today, and that sugar is whatever it is. The A1C looks back and see well how that A1 that those glucoses have been over the past 3 months. And I think I'm having a problem with gas exchange. I'm not sure what's going on, but anyways, I'll be okay. But if I pass out, y'all better call 911. Something's making me cough. Not sure what it is.
Well, you didn't tell
Where you
you what.
located at?
Yeah, where you
Where you
located
located
at?
at?
I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna be okay. It was just
That's
funny in my
terrible.
head. I said, well, I was making up this stuff about this patient. All of a sudden, I have a problem with coughing and gas
Now,
exchange.
this is
But I should
terrible.
be okay. I'm just playing.
I'm finna log
So,
off.
please don't do that. Don't do that, future nurse. Wait a minute, now don't be logging out. Okay, so then she had the classic symptoms, didn't she, y'all? The polyuria, the polydipsia, and the fatigue. That's why I say you gotta know the information about the concepts. Had you not know that those were classic symptoms for someone that has diabetes, we would have never
Yes.
we would have never thought about diabetes. You gotta do your required readings. You gotta know these concepts. Okay. And then we said, start the person on metformin. We said someone said the lipids. Those lipids were high too. Some disease processes, it causes a domino effect. We know that diabetes is one of them. We know hypertension is one of them. If it's uncontrolled, either one of those are uncontrolled, it starts to cause all these other problems with the person. And then we said educate on blood glucose monitoring. You all were spot on. Y'all got all of those. And then that microvascular, we're looking at neuropathy because over time, all that extra sugar in a person's bloodstream, it starts to, get on our optic nerves. It gets on our kidneys, and it makes those things not function like they're supposed to. Hence, we end up with the neuropathy, the retinopathy. The person's vision starts changing, and then lisinopril is appropriate due to the renal protection. Because all that extra sugar is floating around in this person's bloodstream, not just today, but over the past, where's the person A1C? Right there. Over the past 3 months, their A1C is at 8.2. Over time, that extra sugar causes this person's kidneys to not function like they're supposed to. So, what labs do we look at to determine someone's kidney function?
Her protein,
BUN.
the bond.
BFR.
Yeah.
Okay. So initially we look at that BUN and crack. And so that would be something that you talking about, talk to or have a discussion with your patient. Hey, it's really important that you control this, your sugar, that you do your best to control the hypertension. Because over time, it does not just affect your that, but it also will affect your kidneys. And it just spirals out of control to this domino effect. And you kind of see people with this triad. I can't think of the third thing now, but most times people have hypertension. They also have diabetes or vice versa. But it's one more other chronic disease process that they generally have. But it's for the most part, it's because people don't really understand that in order for you to know that you have hypertension, you got to check your blood pressure. Because we are just looking at someone, you can't just say, well, hey, okay, your systolic is this within normal limits, or your diastolic is within normal limits. You really got to check that blood pressure. And so even if they are on medications, is that medication, whether or not it's for diabetes or whatever the chronic disease process, is it controlling and having that patient be able to be being managed? Yeah, the blood pressure is lower, but if a person's blood pressure is normal, like for example, 180 over, I don't know, 90, they're taking a blood pressure medicine, and then when they do the spot checks, blood pressure is 160 over whatever it is, that's still high. Is there not another medication? Is there not a combination of medications? Do we not need to do teaching about lifestyle changes? We don't want to just settle for that blood pressure is lower, but we want it as close as we can to what that normal value is. Okay, so here it is. Let's put critical thinking to use. 54-year-old male client, and I think our time is going to run out. We have 4 minutes. Let's look at this one. We'll just talk this one through. Admitted this morning with lower back pain. Past medical history of heart failure, treated with digoxin, furosemide, and metoprolol. Vital signs are within normal limits. No allergies. They are full cold. EKG is fine. Their cardiac monitor is attached. Pain level is 2 out of 10. So some pain, a little bit of pain. Sometimes people are never pain-free, but they're in less pain. CBC and CMP are being drawn. Critical lab value called to the nurse. The potassium is 3.2. All other lab values are within normal limits. The LPN calls the physician. Let me just stop for one moment. Got somebody off mute. You hearing something, y'all? Okay. So the the critical lab value, okay, we got potassium is 3.2. All other labs are normal. The LPN calls the physician with the critical lab value. What orders does the LPN anticipate receiving? We don't know. But based on this information right here, what orders do we anticipate receiving? Okay. And potassium supplement, because remember the potassium was low, probably stopping or holding that Lasix, because remember, Lasix allows that person to lose potassium. It is not a potassium sparing medication. Probably is why that patient has that low potassium. And they may want to change them. So if they need a diuretic, that doctor would need more than likely change them to a potassium sparing diuretic. That's like the example that I just gave about a person that has hypertension. They're on medications, but then their blood pressure is still high. It's less than it was, but it's still high. They may need a different combination. And then the digoxin level connection between toxicity and hypokalemia. If the digoxin level comes back at 2.3, is it within normal limits? What are the signs of digoxin toxicity? So we're thinking all the time. We're looking at, what medications is my patient on? What's their understanding? Are they compliant? Are they non-compliant? It's just a continuous process, like you all. It's like we turn on the water, our thought process. We're always assessing, and then it just continues and continues. We have 15 minutes left to take our break. So what we'll do is I want to be good stewards of your time. You can log off. I'll stay here and finish reviewing the rest of the content. Once this video is downloaded and uploaded, of course, I share the link. Make sure that you go back through this classroom recording. You will not be tested on the orientation stuff. So fast forward through our content part. So you all take care, and we'll see you next week. You are free to log off because we have saved the rest of our time to take our break now. So you are free to log off. Pause this recording.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so let's look at how nursing has evolved over time. Okay, so let's begin with modern practical nursing. Now trained in educational program consists of theory. You have your seat time. That's where you go over your theory. Then you have clinical simulations. You even have skills lab. You even have it where you actually go out to clinicals and you take care of real people. And then with the simulation labs, that helps you to plan to take care of those real patients. After licensing, you take your NCLEX exam, and that's how you receive your license. Then you are expected to maintain your license. And then that will require and it's state specific. Usually it requires continuing education. And then make sure that whatever state that you're practicing in, that you have a license for that state. You cannot, for example, have a license in let's see, Florida, and then travel over to Alabama and work without an Alabama license. There are some states that are in what they call a compact, but if you have the compact license, you are covered to practice in those states that's in that compact. So if Florida and Alabama are in a compact, yes, you can go from that state to that state because you have a license to practice in that state. We know Florence Nightingale was one of the students. She's known as the founder of modern nursing. Florence Nightingale. We have like the Nightingale lamps and all those things during our pinning ceremonies. Her core beliefs was perfection of mankind, and that nursing is a calling, it's a commitment to take care of people through the good, the bad, and the ugly. Is a commitment to being what's the word I'm trying to come up with, to just provide whatever that best care is for that client, to maintain an ethical, professional attitude. There are going to be some situations where family members, they have questions. The patient might have questions. The patient may become unstable, but it's requiring us to maintain that professionalism and then follow that facility's policies and procedures. Now, if you're in harm and the patient's in harm, of course, we follow whatever that procedure is so that we can report and keep ourselves and that patient safe. The first nursing school in America was started by Pastor Flinier of Germany. Okay. And so over time, nursing has actually evolved. So now we have all different types of nursing programs. It used to be where you just sat and there was only one option. You sat in the classroom and that's how you obtain your foundation. But now you can have a mix of online and brick and mortar classes. You can have all hybrid, part-time. There are so many combinations. Now we're actually seeing where there are partnerships being established with hospitals, with the universities, with the colleges, where they're having nursing programs within the hospital, but the student is actually enrolled into that college. There is so many different things out there now. So out of all the things that we do, they've narrowed it down to four categories that describe our scope of practice as an LPN: judge, appraise, recognize, and determine. The United States Department of Vocational Education has said, hey, we do a bunch of stuff, but on all those different things that we do, we can narrow it down to judge, appraise, recognize, and determine. Okay. So the first computerized hadn't been that long ago because the NCLEX was given on paper with paper and pencil. 1994 is when they actually they changed to administering that exam on the computer. In 1996, long-term care certification became available to LPNs. So not only that you can have your license as an LPN, you can have certifications as a licensed practical nurse. Okay, let's move on to our next. So let's go back to that critical thinking. So we talked about assessing, the client's injuries. We talked about assessing vital signs. Is that critical thinking or not critical thinking? Okay, yes, that is critical thinking. And the patient, the scenario that I gave you, we looked at the client's labs and we determined whether or not they were high or low. And then we started conversation about what that could indicate. What could that mean for that client? Is that critical thinking or not critical thinking? Yes, that is critical thinking. And then that patient we said that may have had some injuries, we ask about their pain level. We assess their pain level by asking, is that critical thinking or not critical thinking? Yes, that is critical thinking. Even if we administer medications for, the pain, or medication because of that glucose is high or that blood pressure is high, that is still a part of critical thinking. So it is important for us critical thinking is important for client care, particularly when the care is complex and involves numerous health issues. It's rare that you're going to have a patient that just has one issue that's going on with them. The person like I mentioned about the patients in room 201, 202, and 203, they all have diabetes. One is a type 1, one's a type 2. The other one has type 2, but they're really in the hospital because they're having some type of surgery. But they also may have gout. They may also have asthma. So critical thinking is important for client care, particularly when the care is complex and involves numerous, that client has numerous health issues. Critical thinking, we're relying, and it goes back to, what is our foundational knowledge about concept? Critical thinking and the nursing process are thinking methods both used to solve problems. Critical thinking is based on the principles and steps of the nursing process and on scientific methods. For example, making judgments based on the evidence rather than guesswork. Okay, so we have nursing process and critical thinking. They are both different methods of solving a problem. They're not based on guesswork. They are both examples of making judgments based on the evidence to actually solve a problem. So when we talk about providing care for our clients, remember, a part of us taking care of our clients, they have a right to refuse. Clients don't have to accept the Tylenol that you're offering. They don't, for example, we were administering Tylenol because the patient has an order for pain medication, Tylenol, Lortab, whatever. That client has the right to say, hey, I do not want that medication, or a treatment option. That client can refuse blood products. They can refuse any treatment option. The client has the right to refuse. That's part of it. We do want to make sure, though, our patients have enough information to make an informed decision, so that they know everything, and we support them in that autonomy. And so remember, we talked about this earlier about deciding what's priority. We rely on airway, breathing, and circulation. So we have patients that are having signs and symptoms of respiratory issues, or if we know that there is a documented respiratory issue. Remember, for example, if we are checking O2 sets and we see that their oxygen level is low, if we assess them and they are struggling for air, they are having a hard time completing sentences, we are going to select that client. We're going to take care of all of our clients, but the client that's having shortness of breath, if they're complaining, or if we assess signs and symptoms that they are having symptoms of shortness of breath or gas exchange, that is going to be priority. Airway, breathing, and circulation. So Tanner's clinical judgment model describes 4 stages of clinical judgment, and those 4 stages includes noticing, interpreting, responding, and reflecting. That is Tanner's clinical judgment model. We're walking past our client's room in 201. We notice that they're slumped over. Okay, we're noticing that they're slumped over. We're interpreting, hey, this person, something's going on with them, because usually they're upright. They might be asleep, but we might need to go in and check, just make sure that they're okay. So we respond. We go in that room. We may even touch. We may call their name out. We may tap on them with some tactile stimuli. We may stand there and look and make sure that chest is rising and falling. And then we reflect upon, okay, what's our next step? Oh, they just sleep. or this client's in, trouble. They're having problems with breathing. But Tanner's clinical judgment model describes 4 stages: noticing, interpreting, and responding and reflecting. Interpreting uses patient's data and compares it with the relevant theoretical and experiential knowledge. Okay, the nurse then begins to assemble all of the information, making sense of it. We identify issues and establish priorities of care. So that's what's happening during that interpreting stage. We're using patient data and we're comparing it with relevant theory and the latest evidence. And then we begin to assemble that information. We try to make sense of it and we identify are there any issues? And then we say, well, hey, this is what we need. This is a priority, and this is what how I should actually respond. Okay, so let's remember what subjective and objective information is. Remember, the subjective information is the information that we actually gain from our clients. Our patients is what the subject is saying. And the objective information is the information that we are gaining based on, us using 4 of our 5 senses. For example, we hear the blood pressure, boom, boom, and we see the dial. We see where the numbers are at on there. We see that chest rising and falling. We're counting those respirations. We're touching that skin. It is warm and dry. It's cool and clammy. So remember those, what subjective examples of subjective and objective information is. Okay. And so it comes to when we start to implement interventions. That's when we perform whatever those planned interventions are. And that could be doing a dressing change. It could be monitoring those vital signs. But the implementation phase is where we are actually performing. And the reason that we're doing that is so that the goals can be reached. We are, for example, if we're administering Tylenol for a fever, the goal is for this client not to have a fever, for this client to be afebrile. So in order for that to happen, one of the interventions might be administer Tylenol, administer ibuprofen. So we implement that. We do that part. We administer that medication based, of course, we follow our medication administration rights. Then we come back. An intervention could be to check that temperature. We check the temperature. And our goal is for that client to be afebrile. But those interventions allows us to be able to address that problem or that issue specifically. Validating is an important step in thinking critically. Verifying the data in questions. Any information that is not a match to your data collection is an example of validating. You want to validate that information. So if you are, you're doing your head-to-toe assessment, you're getting information from that client. You do want to just, think critically, is this information, does it match or does it not match? That's part of validation. You want to make sure that you have the correct information so what you do is you validate to make sure that you have that correct information. And so, like we said, we can't get away from that nursing process. It is a beautiful thing, that nursing process. Again, remember what is subjective and objective information. And then for priority, the question might ask you, what's priority? What's your initial response? And remember, more than likely we can do all of those interventions, but the question is asking you what's priority, what should be done first, what should be our initial response. All of those means the same thing. What should be done first? While we will take care of all of our clients and our patients, remember ABCs is how we decide which patient we will take care of first. So if a client has something going on with their respiratory system, with that gas exchange, with circulation, those are the clients that we're going to take care of first. Think about if the signs and symptoms your client is displaying Are these symptoms of something going wrong with airway, breathing, or circulation? And if so, those are the clients that's going to be that you're going to take care of first. Remember, you will take care of all of your clients. But in the interventions, the airway is always a high priority. So we would, as a nurse, want to attend to the patient who is experiencing problems with that gas exchange and airway problems. That's going to be because that's a life-threatening issue, right? So while we're going to take care of all of our clients, can't get away from airway, breathing, and circulation. So think about what would indicate that a client has problems with airway, breathing, and circulation. Can't complete sentences. They're having non-productive cough. They're coughing continuously. They're using accessory muscles to breathe. O2 saturation is low. Okay. So what organs are part of that respiratory system? Mostly we have the lungs. Are those lungs expanding like they're supposed to? Because if someone has a collapsed lung or something going on with that lung, then that will affect gas exchange. It will affect airway. So airway and breathing issues are always highest priority, y'all. Always highest priority. Okay. We talked that. So we went through clinical judgment. Let's see if we have other content to look at here. Okay, we talked about the nursing process. Get it. Just looking back at everything. So let me share my screen here. I do have one on the nursing process. Okay, here we go. The nursing process, established by ANA as a 5-step process, problem-solving format. It provides that organized way to identify and respond to the client's needs. Okay, NANDA, those are those nursing diagnoses that we look at based on what we think the client's needs are. Remember, the standardized care plan, that is where those packages that the facilities purchase, it has everything in there. For example, we have a client that has asthma. It populates every intervention for a client that has asthma, but we go in and make those care plans individualized. We select those interventions that are specific to our client. Okay, yeah, it skipped some. Okay, here we go. Let's go back. All right, so the nursing process from the LPN scope of practice, we gather data. We are assessing. We work with the RN to come, he or she comes up with that nursing diagnosis, and they plan and collaborate, but we can perform those interventions. We can administer medication. We can do those dressing changes. We can perform whatever those skills are, and insert a Foley catheter and so forth. While the LPN acts independent, in an independent role in data collection, we go in and assess, and we can implement. We just do those interventions. So we gather data during the assessment part. We just talked about examples of subjective and objective data. We do want to verify in the event that we get some abnormal value, the blood pressure. We using an automatic cuff. We might want to check that blood pressure manually just to verify that it's the correct blood pressure. O2 saturation, we're getting an abnormal value. Think about we have, for the most part, 10 fingers. We have different sites we can place that O2 probe, but nevertheless, we do want to verify that the information that we're gathering is correct. Because what are we going to do with that information? If it's abnormal, we're going to report it. The doctor's going to give us an order based on the information that we're given. So we want to make sure that the information that we're given is correct, because we're going to receive these interventions that we need to do for this client. Barriers to data collection. There may not be enough time, there may be cultural differences, poor skills in data collection. There even might be a language barrier. So we might have to bring in an interpreter, but we do want to find out what our client knows and understands about the disease process and what is it that they need to know to take care of themselves. It is rare that someone doesn't want to take care of themselves. It's just knowing what to do and then having those available resources available. So for our goals, we do want them to be realistic, measurable, and then have that time frame. The example about the client having the temperature, the fever, we do want to go back and recheck that temperature to see if that fever has subsided, because we don't want this person having it, a temperature forever and ever. We do want that to be that person to come back to being afebrile without a fever. Nursing, this slide just shows you working through this care plan. This person has altered nutrition. They're eating less than the body needs, than the body actually needs. So what information, how do we know that? Their weight, what is their weight? What's their ideal body weight? What is their intake? What's their output? And then so we observe this client eats only 5% of each meal, related to appetite and weakness. The outcome will be this client, eats, an appropriate amount of food so they can, be to sustain life. So the interventions could be to offer smaller meals more often. This client may have a disease process, for example, COPD, where they, can't eat a large meal in one setting. It's going to take them eating those small meals to still get the nutrition that they need, but they just can't do it all at one time. Okay. Data collection. We're going to check the intake and amount and type of liquids in the milliliters. We're collecting intake. The outcome, the client will eat. We want the client to eat enough calories to sustain. The evaluation, by day 10, the client was able to consume, and we look at the intake record to see what is being documented. We look back at that weight. Did that patient's weight, is it stable, or are they still losing weight? We talked about NANDA, and then we talked about the care plan.